The summary of the light novel, legendary youngest son of the Marquis house. I came here with only the goal of revenge. I overthrew the Tulkan Empire, a single nation that dominated the continent. I had always succeeded in gaining victory. I had accomplished all I needed to and was satisfied. That's why I accepted my approaching of death. I no longer had a reason to live, and so my heart stopped beating. I definitely felt it stop. However, what in the world is happening? It's not black magic, and it doesn't seem like an illusion either. A boy with short black hair was reflected in the mirror. I looked exactly like when I was 14, which was 20 years ago. A young boy who hasn't lost his baby fat yet patted his cheeks and murmured, "How is this possible?" I had returned to the time filled with my regrets. Legendary youngest son of the Marquis house. Prologue. After turning 34 this year, I sometimes think, when exactly did my life start to go wrong? What if? What if I had grabbed onto the way of sword a little quicker? Then maybe I would have been able to stop my family from selling my elder sister to the Empire. If I had, would I have become the monster I am now? Supposing that had been the case, then would I have met my teacher in the first place? My teacher, the one who transformed me from my past self, a dumb and retarded loser who couldn't do anything, and taught me how to survive on my own. He was more than just my savior, and the best moments of my life were the times I spent with him. However, if I had known that we would part that way, I would have acted a little better person to him. I am left with regret for things I wasn't able to do. A scholar once said that humans are animals that always live with regret, and he must be right. I laughed humorously. I only realized too late that there was something wrong. What if I had tried to solve said problem? Another one would arise. That's why I ended up all the way here. I let out a small sigh. Phew! A wide puff of breath floated up to the air. The vast plains beneath it. The vast plains beneath it normally boasted of full of beautiful sight, but today was different. Corpses, blood. The field looked far from beautiful and more like hell, with the gruesome sight of life's remains piled up together, step, step. I could hear the sound of steps coming in my direction. Sitting on the back of a corpse covered with a veil, I slowly turned my head towards the sound. I was met with the appearance and short height of a child. He wore a huge leather armor that didn't quite fit his stature. He was definitely a child soldier. The boy walked over to me, trembling. The light of the full moon shone on the boy's sword while his hand quivered, as if he had been stricken with paralysis. It was a bit sad to see. I wondered if he could swing the sword in his current state. I spared kids' lives whenever I could, and this is how I get repaid, I said with a snicker. You killed my father, the child soldier replied. Oh, really? That's a pity. About 100 meters behind the boy, there were other child soldiers who seemed to be in a similar situation. Around 2,000 of them, maybe 3,000. I wasn't so sure. The boy soldiers were the only ones left alive in a field surrounded by dead bodies. It was quite a sight. The kid in front spoke. Monster. You are a monster. Out of all the words to say, a monster. It's a word I've heard so many times, so it's not new to me. My body started to sting, and pain arose on every part of it. I feel tired and uncomfortable, but my brain, which felt like it would melt down right away, kept on signaling me to stop and just give up on life. But just a little more. I'll wait just a little more. A monster, you say? Pfft. Calling a monster, I killed all of your masters and single-handedly destroyed the great Tulkan Empire. I even killed the Emperor. Do you know how many people I have killed with these hands? The boy could not answer. Even I didn't know how many had died from my hands. So how would he know? But what's certain is, at least tens of millions, I said. And yet you tell me I'm a monster. Isn't that obvious already? It wasn't supposed to be funny, but all I did was laugh. Even if I laughed, I had no one to talk about it anymore. I looked up. The child who was paralyzed like a statue before now looked terrified as he shook in fear. My gaze turned to the sword that the kid My gaze turned to the sword the kid wielded. It was a double-edged sword, about 1.2 meters tall. That didn't seem like a trivial weapon that could be used by a child soldier. Looking at the embossed patterns on the blade, it was quite expensive. Kid, what's your name? Jack. Jack Stewart. I bursted out laughing once more. This must have been fate. My name is Jack too, I replied. Maybe I expected more from the kid. However, he did not react to it. I shrugged and continued. You said I killed your father. I have killed so many people that I don't remember which one was called Stuart. Seeing as you want revenge for your father, you two must have been really close. The boy replied with a shaking voice. He wasn't exactly a good father, but he was essential. An essential father. To be honest, I was a bit jealous. I won't apologize for killing him, but I'll instead give you a chance. What? Stab me with the sword you're holding. The boy jumped from his spot as if he had been hit by lightning. Then he gulped and began to closely look at me. My right arm was shaking as if it was about to fall off, and my legs had torn muscles and exposed bones as if they had been bitten off by a wild animal. They had not lost their function yet, but they were certainly not in a proper condition anymore. More than 50% of the blood surrounding me was mine. I had been sitting in this position for about 5 hours, just on the verge of death. It's a great opportunity, don't you think? You get to avenge your father and kill the worst monster in history. Although my body was in its worst condition, I could still survive if I wanted to. It's not just a false sense of confidence. If I wanted to stay alive, I really could. Broken legs, they recover soon enough. Smashed organ, they can still be regenerated. However, I didn't want that. Like I said earlier, I had completed my revenge and didn't want to continue living this life anymore. I don't want to live. In summary, I'll be dead soon, and it'll be from excessive bleeding. There's not much time left. It's your chance to become a hero, isn't it? Why are you hesitating? The child slowly walked up to me, who was already on the brink of death, and gulped. And then came the sound of his sword. He gritted his teeth, his hands trembling as the sword shook along with it, and so, drop, the sword fell to the floor. Sniff. Clear tears fell from the child's eyes. The result was simple. The boy could not do it. However, good job. What? I raised my numb hand as best as I could and placed it on the boy's head. Do you think you'd live comfortably after killing me? You'd end up getting all sorts of nicknames, enduring a lot of tiring work for the rest of your life. Do you think you can handle it? I paused. It might seem childish, but it is the truth. I looked at the child soldier, the one named Jack, which is the same as mine, and opened my mouth to speak once more. Don't live a life of regret like I did. You're different from me since you're still young. In the eyes of the boy, I was definitely smiling. The boy said nothing and only bowed his head from where he stood. Drip, drip. Tears from his eyes fell to the pool of blood on the ground. Goodness, It makes me feel soft hearted. Go and tell everyone the demon is dead and the war is over. No. Why? Why did you live such a life when you have so much power? That was a difficult question to answer. I wonder why too. This was the end. I could feel it. Strength and sensation disappeared from my hand like a balloon with no air. And then my eyes became blurry as they closed, even when they are not willing to. Slowly, I forgot to breathe, and the sound of my surroundings died down. Desolation, this feeling like I was the only one in the world. I could tell death had finally come for me. That was what I thought. End of prologue. Hi guys, this is chapter 1, Legendary Youngest Son of the Marquis House, narrated by Harris. That's me. If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thank you. Chapter 1. It felt like a dream. In my younger days, a father who was suspicious if I really was of his blood, and a mother only known from a portrait who died on the same day I was born. An elder sister whose name was known for her beauty, not just in our household but across the continent, and the second child of the family that loved to bother me. I remember it all. The days when I abandoned the name Jack Valentia, became a swordsman, and condemned the continents passed through my mind. It was confusing enough to make me wonder if this it was confusing enough to make me wonder if this is currently a dream or that had been a dream. The two felt so real. Am I dead? Am I really dead? Perhaps this was just my whole life flashing in rapid succession. I slowly touched my face as I stared at the mirror in front of me. The scars that used to be on my face were gone and were instead replaced with baby fat. This makes no sense. It's been an hour or so since this weird occurrence happened, and that's why this makes absolutely no sense. In the Second Continental War, which I started, I was the victor, a ruthless killer, and a monster among monsters. With my only goal being revenge, I overthrew the Tulkan Empire and dominated the continent and killed all living beings that were named Tulkan. I had always succeeded in gaining victory. I had accomplished all I needed to and was satisfied. That's why I accepted my approaching of death. I no longer had a reason to live, and so my heart stopped beating. I had definitely felt it stop. However, what in the world happened? It's not black magic, and it doesn't seem like an illusion either. Did I really go back in time? A boy with short, black hair was reflected in the mirror. This was how I looked when I was 14, a weak and feeble boy who hasn't lost his baby fat yet, patted his cheek and murmured, "How is this possible?" And then came the dawn of the first day I returned to the past. The Marquis house of Valentia from Teslan Kingdom was a respectable family and a loyalist, supportive of the existing power in the kingdom, and I was the third and the last child of the family. The youngest child in the family with the title of Marquis, Marquis being an aristocratic title. The position of the Lord was one where you could enjoy riches and power for almost all of your life as long as you didn't get too greedy. Lord addressed with aristocratic title. That was common knowledge. However, this wasn't so for the Valentier house. So there was a rose garden here. Rose Garden. It's a building located on the side of the main building of the Marquis house. The garden is surrounded by a lot of roses and looks beautiful on the surface. But that was all just a disguise. It's considered as a place of exile, It's a place with the purpose of completely disconnecting the youngest child from the outside world, without a guardian or a family to support him. Although it is called the place of exile, it is not such an unfamiliar place to me. I plopped down on the interest of the yard and looked up at the skies, clear weather and blue sky. The harmonious atmosphere was enough to warm my